Hello again, and we are doing our essay of Friendship by Francis Bacon. And in my last video, I had started with the second fruit of friendship as he was talking about, and he said that the second fruit of friendship is healthful and sovereign for the understanding of, as the first is for the affections. To say it simply, we can say that Bacon means that, and I'm going to just write a little bit for your understanding. He says, and you may copy this down, please. The second advantage of friendship is that it helps in understanding complicated matters, because life is full of complications and a person deals with difficult matters all the time. Sometimes the problems are so large in scale, they appear to be immense, that you yourself are incapable, or you find yourself incapable of solving them. At that time, a friend really comes in handy. A friend helps you. He says, I'm just reading and then I will continue writing over here. He says, for friendship maketh indeed a fair day in affections from storm and tempest, but it maketh daylight in the understanding out of darkness. It is as if the friend takes you out of darkness into daylight. So I will just write this down and we will discuss this. As if he brings light into darkness, of the mind. So if your mind has suddenly become darkened and you think that your problem is too complicated for you to solve, a friend's counsel, a friend's help can really bring that light, spark of light, and the darkness is all gone, it just vanishes. And he says, and confusion of thoughts. So if you want clarity, so the friend will take away the confusion and bring clarity of thoughts. And he says, neither is this to be understood only of faithful counsel which a man receiveth from his friend, but before you come to that, certain it is that whosoever hath his mind fraught with many thoughts, his wits and understandings do clarify and break up in the communicating and discoursing with another. These two words are very important, communicating and discoursing. Before I explain this to you, I again want to write a bit so that you can also maybe write down, and you can also copy it down over here. And he says, this does not mean that all friends would be capable of giving intelligent advice. That is really practical. Sometimes you have friends, but unfortunately they are not so intelligent as to give you practical advice, intelligent advice. So here, when he uses this term faithful counsel, he wishes to say intelligent advice. Okay, so he says, but if you don't have friends who are intelligent and who you cannot take intelligent advice from them, he says, But before you come to that, certain it is that whosoever hath his mind fraught with many thoughts. Fraught with many thoughts means your mind is caught up in complicated or maybe complex problems. He must remember that communicating and discoursing alone is enough, even though you may not receive any advice. Just by saying, just by discussing, and see how beautiful a term he uses. He tosseth his thoughts more easily, as if you yourself are throwing out your thoughts in the form of your words. You just say out your problem loud to a friend, and when the thoughts turn into words, you can actually toss them. You can think about them. When you talk about it, it is as if discussing and communicating helps in making the complicated problem more orderly. Do you understand the meaning of orderly? Orderly means things become more clear. So these two words, let me mark them out for you. The word easily and orderly. So something which appeared to be so complex, something which appeared to be so complicated suddenly becomes easy and clear. Orderly means clearly. So how did you do that? Your friend did not advise you. You just talked to your friend, and just by merely talking, you yourself understood your problem by just putting your thoughts into words. He seeth. So the person seeth how they look when they are turned into words. So when you speak about it, you yourself see your problem more clearly. Have you got this? Have you got this? Okay. And then finally, he waxeth wiser than himself. What is the meaning of this waxeth wiser than himself? This means that he comes to understand his problem himself just by discussing with a friend. And then a very interesting fact he adds, and that more by an hour's discourse than by a day's meditation. Discourse means discussion, and meditation means silent thinking. So he says, if you are silently thinking about something, maybe you just spend a whole day and you come to no conclusion, but you just spend 1 hour with a friend, talk about it, discuss it, and suddenly you have the solution to your problem. So this is very easy. It is very easy to understand just by discussing with a friend. I also wish to write a few things over here. So if you can just write this down with me, then we can move on. Okay. And I will also rub a little bit here so that we have some space. Right. And so he says, just putting this down more easily, he says, I hope you have got the gist of what he wishes to say over here. And then, very wisely, as we know, Bacon always does this. He uses the example of Themistocles, the king of Persia, who said that speech was like the cloth of Aris. Now, Aris was a city in Persia famous for its carpets. Persian carpets, even today they are very famous. So he gives the example of the cloth of Aris, means obviously the carpets made in Aris. They are so beautiful in design, but if a carpet is just rolled up, can you imagine what beautiful design there is inside that rolled up carpet? No, no one knows. It is only when it is opened and put abroad. Put abroad means for everyone to see. Whereby the imagery doth appear in figure. This means only then its beautiful design is visible. So he compares speech. When you speak it out, you open up the carpet and see the beautiful design. Silence is like folding up. He says, in thoughts they lie but in packs. But in packs means folded up. So when your problem is in thoughts, it is folded up. You cannot see clearly. But when it is put in speech, it is opened, and then we can see that what the design is, what the problem is very clearly. So very beautiful comparison he makes. He says, neither is this second fruit of friendship in opening the understanding restrained only to such friends as are able to give a man counsel. So if your friend can give you counsel, which means advice, that is good. But even if your friend is not able to give you any advice, even then friendship is important. Why? Because at least you have somebody to speak to. That is important. But even without that, a man learneth of himself. A man can help himself. How can he help himself? By just speaking out his problem aloud. So you just have to have somebody in front of you. And then he says, it is like sharpening your wits against a stone. So just like a person needs to sharpen his knife, he needs a stone. What is sharpened? The knife is sharpened, but with the help of a stone. So he says, you can sharpen your wits, you can sharpen your you can sharpen your wisdom, but who will sharpen it? That stone. So here the friend is compared to the stone. The stone is doing nothing, it is just sitting there, but still it helps to sharpen the wit, which itself cuts not. In a word, a man were better relate himself to a statue or a picture. So ultimately Bacon says, even if you don't have a friend, talk to a statue, talk to a painting, but talk to somebody, than to suffer his thoughts pass in smother, than to just suffer silently by having nobody to speak to. Don't suffer in silence, he says. Talk to a statue, talk to a painting, talk to a friend, even though that friend is not able to give you any advice. Even then, speak out, because speaking out will help you understand your problem better. And then he will tell us further about the second fruit of friendship, but that we will do in my next recording. Thank you very